So, shout. You all have eye clickers. You know how to use them? There's a little vote. I think it's A, B, C, or D, or 1, 2, or 3, or 4. I don't have one in front of me, so I don't actually know. Can I have that little white eye clicker? Just throw it to me. Toss it. There. Okay, so you have A, B, C, D. Let's see how this goes. First question, which was on your survey, which is on the board, and those of you up at Davis can just write down what your answer might be. Can you turn my mic up a bit, because I'm going to have to struggle with my voice. There we go. Okay, should parents that carry a gene for a genetic disease be required to test their children to determine whether they are carriers? Should be required to determine whether they are carriers or have the disease. Go. Guys done? Keep going. I know there's a few more of you in here. Any more? Stop. Okay. There's the results. I think I might get rid of that. Okay. So, the answer is 68% of you say B, no. Parents should not be required to have their children tested. 32% of you said yes. How about the Davis folks? We have 50-50, 100%. What's just the percentages? That's all I care about.
I said B.
I said B too.
Okay, you can be anonymous. We can just take a 100%, whatever. You can give it to John in a polling, in a little polling booth. So, who said yes? Eden, tell me why. Where's the microphone? Give me some very succinct 1, 2, 3 reasons why you said they are required.
So their children can be treated early on.
Okay.
If there's a genetic problem, maybe their embryo can be alternated some
Or
way.
when they're born, maybe?
Or when they're born.
Okay, what if there's no cure?
Then the child should know. So
Then the child should know.
Well, I just thought...
Be specific here.
Okay.
Succinct and specific.
It's better to live knowing than to have all these malfunctions and not know.
Okay, but let's focus on the issue. Dora, you said no. The issue is, should the parents be required? You said no. Can you elaborate why?
I just felt that if a parent didn't want to know, then they shouldn't be forced to know.
Okay, so if the parent didn't want to do the test, they shouldn't be forced to do the test. What if there was a cure for the genetic disease?
Well, then they can test if they want to, but if they wouldn't be required to.
So if they decide not to, Dora, then the child could die or be mentally retarded or whatever?
I guess.
Have you ever been tested for a genetic disease?
No.
You're positive about that?
No.
You're absolutely 100% for you. Have you ever been tested for a genetic disease?
Not that I know of.
Yeah, you're positive about that. How many of you said no in UCLA? Who said no? Rose. Pass the mic. Where are the other mics? You can start passing them around. Okay? Ingrid, where's the movie camera? Okay. Huh? I mean our movie camera.
It's recording.
Okay.
Okay. So I said no kind of along the same lines as the Davis people said no, because I mean, it's one of those things where it's like if the parents don't want to know, and if the parents, they are obviously, either carrying the disease or have lived with the disease, and if they'd rather not know about their children having the disease, that's, their prerogative and their
So
right.
you would agree with the people at UC Davis?
Yes.
No, they shouldn't be required. So the majority of you say the parents should not be required to test their children for a genetic disease. The minority of you say that, in fact, they should. Well, big surprise. The state of California and every other state in the United States requires all newborn children to be tested for known genetic diseases for which there could be a cure at birth. All of you have been tested for like phenylketonuria. That is, if you have a deficiency in a particular gene that leads to an overabundance of a particular amino acid, and just by changing the diet, you can come out totally normal. But if you don't change the diet, you're going to be severely mentally retarded. So it's a state law in California and in other laws, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts. Parents can opt out on religious grounds, but it's tough to be able to do that. So let's move to the next, and we're going to talk a lot about that in this class. We're going to talk about it a lot later, so hold on. So should a child that is born with a genetic disease be allowed to sue their parents for failing to have a genetic test for the disease that is causing the child so much misery if a gene test exists? In other words, a gene test exists for, let's say, cystic fibrosis. The parents know that this test exists. They have some history of cystic fibrosis in their family someplace. They say, no, I'm not going to get the test for the kids. You know, it's just if they get it, they get it. It's the luck of the draw. Little baby's born, gets cystic fibrosis, and lives basically, not so much anymore, but let's say lives in misery. It's totally ticked off at their parents and sues the parents for wrongful life in a court of law, basically saying that my life would have been better had I not been born. That's a tort liability case, of which many have been brought against parents in this country in state courts. Okay? So how many of you would say yes, they can do that? How many of you would say no, they can't do that? Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, great. Don't forget to vote up at Davis. 26, 30, a couple of you haven't voted yet. 30, I think there's 1 or 2 more of you in here. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, we're done. So, most of you, I don't know how to get rid of this. I need Brandon. I really, truly, there. How do I get rid of this thing up there? Oh, I don't see it. How did it get away? What did I do? Okay, don't go away. I need you. Okay, thank you. Okay, 90% of you said no, and a few of you said yes. Where are my yes people? Samantha, you're a good talker. I was listening to you yesterday. Let's get these mics around here. Just leave them with the kids and I'll pass them around.
Okay, so obviously it's
Be
a
very
really,
succinct.
it's a
'cause we don't have a lot
complicated
of time.
question. Maybe I didn't read it, but you said that you would sue.
I wouldn't. This is a court of law.
But when you're saying sue, are you saying sue because you feel like you shouldn't have been born?
It's not
or
me. Leave me out of this. No
in the
pronouns
question,
here.
The
Let's-
question
Yeah.
being asked, is it that the children would sue because they feel like they shouldn't have been alive?
Yeah. They have
Okay.
a miserable life.
Okay, so maybe I read the question a little bit differently, obviously. I just think it's definitely the parent's responsibility that when you bring a child into this world, you should
That's
know.
not the issue. The issue is can they sue or not? Let's stick to
I
the
do think
legal
they
issue.
should. I do think they should
Period.
sue.
This legal issue.
I think that there's.
Let's leave morals out and what you think and believe. Let's stick to legality here. Do you believe that the children can sue for tort liability in a court of law their parents for making their life miserable?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Who else said yes? Someone else. Only Eden and Samantha? Who else? Okay, go ahead. Kathy. Let's go to Kathy.
Okay, thanks. I think they should be allowed to sue. I don't think they should, but I just think, like, in legal case, they should be allowed to.
Okay.
They should have the option.
Okay. Who said no? Up in Davis. Did you say yes or no? What were the polls up there?
We got 2 no's.
2 no's. Let me hear from Faria. Is it an It's not an Did you know that you know what an is? It's a mental pause. Did you know that? People have done studies about the frequency of ums in discussion. Anyways, go ahead. It's been published papers on ums. So, what do you think?
I think that it's not the child's fault and it's not the parents' fault either. It's just a matter of your genetic makeup. But I don't think a child should be able to sue just because, you know, it is a parent's, they can choose whether or not they want to get their child tested, but a child shouldn't be able to sue parents if they do have genetic disease.
Okay, in most states in the United States, legislation has been adopted that prevents children from suing their parents on the grounds of wrongful life. There was a classical state Supreme Court decision that basically said when the children were trying to sue their parents, it came down and the Chief Justice of the Michigan State Court basically said, well, since we don't know what the quality of life would be without life, and we have no comparison to non-life to life, therefore the topic is moot. Okay? So we're going to talk a lot about that later on in the quarter when we go to the law. Where's Brandon? Okay. How do I get rid of this thing? How do I get rid of this thing? Okay. Okay, let's go to another one. Here we go. Should cloning of human embryos, that is cloning yourself, be permitted in order to obtain patient-specific stem cells in order to cure diseases such as diabetes, Parkinson's, muscular dystrophy? In other words, let's say that you have some serious disease. There's no way to effect a cure. You need a tissue transplant in order to, let's say, cure that disease, and there's no one that's compatible with you. You don't have any match. Anything from any other person would be rejected, and therefore the only way to be able to perhaps do this would be to make, let's say, a little clone, let's say an 8 or a 9 or a 10 or a 15 cell embryo of yourself, which can be done very easily in this day and age. And then be able to take some of those cells, make embryonic stem cells, and from those embryonic stem cells, get the tissues that you want, be able to implant it back in your own body, and then, let's say, cure you of the disease. So, are we ready? Let's go. Yes or no? Oh, we got a lot of yeses here. I like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, done. Okay. So, how do I get rid of this bar over here? There we go. How many people say no? Lifen.
Well, I think human embryos are human embryos. They are alive. Why should I use or kill myself in the expense of other humans' life? It's my embryos, yes, but it's not my life. Like, it's two living beings. I don't want to kill other people in order to survive.
Okay, so you're going to die rather than do that. That would be your choice. If
Well,
there's no other way, yes or no?
Yes,
Okay.
because it's my fate.
That's your choice. Who else said no? Kathy.
I said no because even if they are clones of embryos, I agree with Lythan, they are still life, and that's the bottom line.
What would you do with the 500,000 frozen embryos that are around the world in freezers that are the products of in vitro fertilization? Would you donate them for research? Would you throw them down the drain, or would you leave them there forever? There's roughly 500,000 frozen embryos around the world that are the results of in vitro fertilization from parents that couldn't have children without this process, that now have wonderful children. What would you do with those embryos? If some of them you knew could cure someone and keep them alive, and there are only 8 cells. Think about that. How about up in Davis?
Both no's, or both
Okay.
yeses. Sorry.
Both yeses. Let's hear from the Dora woman, the yes.
I agree with Lyfin, but then at the same time,
Cost
I
versus
agree-
benefit.
I agree that you shouldn't
Where's Brandon?
use up other lives for yourself, like destroy other lives for yourself. But then, like in the case that you just mentioned with the extra embryos that are frozen, like instead of throwing them away, you should utilize them. So like not waste them.
Who down here said yes? Let's hear a yes. Zach? Here we go. Pass it back or over.
I said
It's not an
I said yes because
Speak up.
I think if we have an opportunity to help someone and prevent their suffering, we should probably take that. I don't really I get what they're saying against
Well, you're
them.
helping yourself. You're not helping someone. You're helping yourself.
Well,
Because
especially
you're
when if I'm
cloning yourself. You're not
Any-
doing it to help someone else.
Well, it's even more so if it's myself, because I'd want to cure myself of one
I've already
of these
heard
diseases.
from you. Okay? Who else says yes? Kayla.
I said yes because I actually have a genetic disease. I have hypoglycemia, and if there was a way for me to recreate, like to clone my DNA and fix the fact that I produce too much insulin, I would do it because it's hell. And so if there was a way to fix it, and I wasn't actually physically killing a living, thinking being in order to accomplish it, then it would be worth it.
Great. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about this in this class. We're going to have a speaker. We're going to talk everything about this. And by the way, all of you should know, Jack, all of you should know that if you make some embryonic stem cells in your lab, like let's say I make some stem cells of Zach's in my lab, I can patent it. Perfectly legal. We're going to talk about that. Thinking about patenting human embryonic stem cells. Been patented for a long time, at least in the United States, not in Europe. They're a little bit more moralistic about these things. Should every individual who's arrested for a crime be required to have their DNA fingerprinted and deposited in a national criminal database called CODIS, which we're going to talk an awful lot about. And the key word is arrested here. I didn't say convicted, I said arrested. Go. 1, 2, 3, going once, going twice, going, stop. What's the verdict up in Davis?
100% no.
Okay, Faria.
Yes.
What's the reason for no?
Not every time you're arrested is for like a felony, so I don't think you should be required for you to have your DNA fingerprinted unless it's like a serious reason.
Okay, you mean for a felony or a misdemeanor or what?
Felony.
Only for felonies, that's what you would say? Yeah. Arrested, not convicted.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. Who else said no here at UCLA? Let's get someone who hasn't talked before. How about Tiger? I haven't heard you. Microphone. Where are the? There's a few more. Do we have any more microphones? There should be 3. There's, okay, that's 2. There's, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
I think that the right to privacy is really important in America, and I think that your own identity and the identity of your DNA is about as personal right to your personal privacy as there is. So especially if you haven't been convicted of a crime, it's not like you are a danger to society, so I don't think you should have to give up that part of yourself.
How old are you, Tiger, if I may ask?
22.
When was the first time you voted in a California election?
I'm from Florida.
You're from Florida. Ooh, okay. All right, we'll come back to that in a second. Who said yes? Rose talked. Kayla talked. We'll get Eric. Eric, you. You, Eric.
Yeah. I feel like, or I think that...
yeah, we're not feeling in here, you know. That's for a psychiatrist.
I don't really see the privacy issue in having your DNA, like, fingerprint, like your DNA in the database. I mean, the only reason I can think of, like, legal reason, or I mean, just a reason that I could think of that you wouldn't want to do it is because you're scheming for something illegal. I mean, it certainly doesn't hurt to, you know, have your DNA in the database. If you
Eric, what happens if your DNA is in a database and you're arrested for a crime and you were acquitted and the DNA is still in your database? And somewhere, someplace, someone commits a real crime and let's say is a real criminal, okay? And just by the basis of chance and chance alone, even though it's infinitesimal, Someone searches this database and comes up with a hit of Eric, a perfect match of your DNA. And they pound on your door at night and they say, you're under arrest for the murder of that guy. Because we have your DNA match. Even though it might be a 1 in a trillion possibility, there's still that 1 in a trillion possibility. What are you going to say?
Well, I wasn't aware of that was actually possible, that your DNA would be a perfect match with somebody else's.
Well, it's only a probability here. You know, there's no such thing as perfect. We're science
That's
here.
true.
Okay, it's only a probability. It's like tossing a coin up. 50% heads and 50% tail.
But chances are that I'll have a rock
So
solid
if you're
alibi
acquitted,
that
you want your DNA left in there.
I actually personally wouldn't care.
Okay. It just so happens by Proposition 209 in the state of California and most states in the United States, anyone arrested for a felony and certain misdemeanors is required to give a piece of their saliva, a piece of their cheek skin to have a DNA test. And it just so happens if you are acquitted, it's up to you to get your DNA out of the database. So you're the one that's got a petition to get it out. So that's why I asked you, how many of you voted 2 years ago in the state of California? Because that was on the ballot. You would be voting for that proposition, yes or no. Okay, let's take one more and then we have to move on and do some other fun things. But we're going to talk a lot about this stuff. And I should say that we're going to have the head of the LA Crime Lab here, Harry Klan, and you're going to really enjoy him. I'm not going to do that one. Pardon?
What did you vote for?
I voted yes, absolutely, for many, many reasons. So, if parents choose to give birth to a child with a genetic disease, should the parents or society have to pay for the health care of the child? The scenario is that you know you have a genetic disease. Let's say, for example, like a famous newscaster by the name of Bree Walker, who none of you know because you're too young to know her. She had a dominant genetic disease that prevented her hands from developing. She decided, this is dominant now, she decided to have a child with her husband. And the children, of course, don't have any hands. That was their decision. So the question really is then, because those children might need medical care and things like that, and because knowingly they were brought into the world, and we're not going to talk about whether that's positive or negative or whether the parents made the right decision or not. All we're going to discuss here is whether or not, the society has to pay, meaning, you know, you pay the health care in general, or the parents have to pay on their own. Go. I know what your answers are because I have the results of your survey. But maybe they've changed since class started. Better stop it. There we go. So, how about the Davis folks?
Split decision.
Split. Who's yes, who's no?
I'm yes.
Go ahead, Dora.
Well, I think the parents should pay for it
Ingrid, don't go.
if they're willing to have a child with a genetic disease. Like, if you had a kid with a genetic disease, I wouldn't want to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's all the more reason why we need universal health care, so none of all these questions become moot, right? Okay, who said no? Someone who hasn't said a word. Julie. Yes, society shouldn't pay. Parents should pay.
I interpret that as society's universal health care, which I absolutely support.
But we don't have it now, so let's work under current scenario.
Okay. I think health care is a right, not a privilege.
But we're not talking about health care, we're talking about this question.
Well, society...
So we're not campaigning here. So defend your position.
That means people pay taxes for the health care of the child with a genetic disease, and I support that.
Okay. Who else supports that position? Maxime. Is that how do we pronounce your Maxime? My sister's name is Maxine.
Yeah, mine.
Your sister's name's Maxine too? Huh? You have a lot of Maxes in your family? Okay, go ahead.
I would say society would have to pay at least a portion of it, because what about the people who are already born with genetic diseases even though they didn't know? They didn't know that they were going to get them. It's not that big of a difference. It's just knowledge that they were going to have it earlier on.
Uh-huh.
So I don't think that you should discriminate based on that.
But
So-
in the absence of universal health care, and we're not going to get into that at all in this class till the last week, it's a serious issue because it's pretty costly. I mean, some children tragically are born, let's say, without hands. That's tragic. Maybe the cost to society is not that significant, but someone who's born with a real serious, genetic disease, mentally disabled, you should all know that in our society, I know you all have wonderful parents and we live in a wonderful, wonderful place, most of us, but I can't tell you that when these children are born with very serious genetic defects and mental diseases and things, they're dumped on the state. The parents just dump them in institutions. And that's generally what's done for the vast majority of these kids. And so because they don't know how to deal with them, they don't know how to handle them, they don't know what to do with them, and so it's a serious issue. Okay. We're going to have discussions about this stuff many, 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 many times through the course of this quarter. And there's going to be a lot of discussions because you're going to have speakers that are going to talk about the issue of what do you do with frozen embryos that are in freezers. Michelle Evans is going to be here to talk about that. We're going to have Harry Klan talking about how he gets in graves and exhumes bodies and gets DNA samples in order to either convict people or to get the innocent out of jail. We're going to have speakers that are going to talk about a lot of these different issues. And we're going to talk about them in discussion. So we're going to have many, many opportunities to discuss and to debate in different fora these particular issues. Now, what we're going to do today is something which is rather unique. We're going to go back in time, if I can figure out how to work this thing. And I may need some help, actually. We're going to go back in time, and what we're going to do is we're going to look at the origins of DNA. We're going to have a look at Jeff Goldblum playing James D. Watson in an enactment of the book that you're going to read called The Double Helix, and you're going to look at the race for the double helix. A 1,000 years from now, long after everything that we do and have done in recent times has been forgotten, the name of Watson and Crick will be remembered for thousands of years, because this arguably was the most important biological discovery of our time. And this film illustrates in a wonderful way, and the book that you will read illustrates in a marvelous way the process of science and coming together and looking in a dark room in which there's absolutely no knowledge and coming up with something that no one has ever seen before. So get a hold of that book, take a look at it, and I hope you enjoyed this film, and I hope all of you up in Davis enjoyed this film. I love this film. And do your quiz, office hours tomorrow, and I will see all of you on Tuesday. Have a great weekend.